Hey everybody, Heavy Leather Horror Show.
Woo!
It's your old pal Ken. It's your old pal Kelly. Today, Kelly, where are we at today?
We're at Salem's Witch Board Museum right in the center of town.
Wow, that's pretty exciting. You know, if witch boards are the conduit to the spirit world, Kelly, then this place might just be the most haunted place in all of Salem.
No, I'm out. No.
What?
There he goes.
I think we lost Rui. There he goes. Well, we lost Rui, but so what? We're going to go anyway. Let's check it out, everybody.
Occult mystery.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. We are here with John Kozik, who runs the Witch Board Museum, and he is going to fill us in on what it's like to own a Witch Board Museum and how he came to get one in the first place. Kelly, what do you think? First of all, what do you think about this place that we're in?
I think this place is awesome. It is definitely a little hidden gem in Salem. So if you're in the area, if you're visiting, if you're local, you definitely need to come down here. I'm really excited to learn a little bit history about the board.
These boards have some sort of power, John, don't they? They have some sort of vibe, indefinable vibe.
Absolutely. You hear tons of stories from people, and I always say that of all the Ouija board stories I hear, I never think that the person is lying or not telling the truth. I think that they believe that they experience the things they do. So that's one of the things that draws me to the board is these stories of in such extreme opposite stories, opinions of the board, whether they believe they're a silly little game or they believe they're tools of the devil. Most people have a strong opinion about them.
Have you yourself ever experienced reaching the other side?
I have not. And I got to tell you, being here and hearing so many people's stories, it makes me very jealous that I haven't experienced anything. And coming here in Salem, this building that we're in was a funeral home. And so everyone that works in this building has told me stories of some kind of experience, with feeling something and being here, I thought, oh, great, the Ouija boards, they'll feel it, and nothing. So I personally have never had an experience with a board, but my grandmother did, and I believe her experiences, and I certainly believe all the stories I've heard. So,
what got you into it in the first place? What was your first experience with one of these boards?
I got interested in it because I inherited my grandmother's board. And after she passed away, I got the board. I went online and wanted to find out more about it. And I basically found a website called the Museum of Talking Boards. And on there, I was just overwhelmed with not only the knowledge, but certainly like all these boards that I'd never seen. I had thought that the Ouija board only looked one way, like a Parker Brothers William Fold board. And to see all these different themes and layouts, I was just mesmerized by it. And it just set me on a path to want to learn as much as I could and certainly collect and have what I have now. But yeah, it all stems from my grandmother. So I've never really used a board or ever had an experience using the board, but as a little kid, she would use the board. She'd have family members over, and I was never allowed to be in the room with her when she used it. And so I'd have to spy from like the top stair or through a window, but she used the board alone, and she would be able to yell out letters and numbers quicker than someone could write them down. And she would just, I don't know what was said, but I could see how fast she'd move her hands to get that experience. And so that's always stuck with me.
Ouija isn't the first board. That's just the brand.
Well, Ouija is the first mass manufactured board. Prior to Ouija, everything was homemade, and so there was no names on it. But once Ouija in 1890 becomes the first mass manufactured board, it instantly becomes, everything starts to be known as a Ouija board. But it is a trademarked brand name, much like Kleenex is to tissues. So it's very specific. So spelling Ouija or having, trying to spell it slightly different, those all infringe on that trademark.
So wait a minute. So how did you start collecting these boards?
No, so after inheriting my grandmother's board, and I went on the Museum of Talking Boards and saw all these different boards, I was like, wow, I really want to get an old vintage one. And so it just started with one, became two, and how much I would spend. I think I was spending like $15 or $20 with shipping at first. And I don't know, after a couple of years, I had, 50, 80 boards or so. Eventually, I set up my basement as a small museum and set that up. And with a friend, Robert Murch, really had the idea to do a museum in Salem. And so for 7 years, we looked for space all over Salem, looked at every property that was available, and nothing worked out. And it wasn't until I went to the Mystic Museum, which is a museum in Burbank, California, and they have a storefront, and you could pay the person at the register to enter the back room to see their collection. And at the time, they had a spirit board collection on display. Once I saw the way how they had set that up, it really changed how I thought, like, wait, I don't need to worry about renting a space, or if I can find a business that exists that maybe I can coexist with in some way, that they have extra space, they would either rent me. After 7 years, luckily, I found Tim, who's the owner of Remember Salem. He does the Salem Night Tour here and Halloween Museum, and luckily we got along really great. And this space is it's available, and it's everything. It's more than what I could ever hoped for. It's the best location out of everything I looked at.
When people come to visit and see the museum, what do? What activity happens here?
So, I mean, it's a self-guided tour unless I'm here, which I love being here as much as possible and talking about all these things. And it's laid out fairly chronological. And so I get a lot of people that come in, and I have a couple Ouija boards here that they can actually use. And so there's a lot of people that come in just to use the board. They're here sometimes for hours. I've come in on quite a few of them. I try to not disturb them and just kind of eavesdrop a little bit. And so I think that's awesome, because where else can you go, not only learn the history of these things, but also to actually use a board and, connect with something.
Wild.
That's incredible.
Let's take a look around.
All right.
Here we go.
Well, welcome to the museum. I'm going to give you a little short tour of what you might see when you come here. Right away, right when you come in, you'll be greeted by Charles Kennard and Helen Peters. Charles Kennard is the first person to mass manufacture the board, and Helen Peters is not only the person who asked the board what it wanted to be called, where it's spelled back Ouija, but she actually is responsible for helping getting it patented. Clerk after clerk, no one would sign off on the board. This is
What year was that?
This is 1890. Yeah,
Nice.
so in February is when they actually calls when Ouija gets the trademark. Throughout the museum, you'll start to see these spikes in popularity. Usually a time of war where people want to speak to deceased loved ones. In this case is a lot of ephemera. Not only these boards super rare, but to have paper or anything that just doesn't stand the test of time. So in here, not only are they rare because the paper, but because they say Ouija on them, they're infringing on that trademark, and they're just made for a very short time.
All right, John, I wanted to ask you about some of the boards that you have in this display over here. By the way, against this wall that we're going to show you, these are all 1940s,
Yep, everything.
right? Which
yeah.
seemed like a watershed decade for witch boards. I'm assuming because so many people were dead from the war,
Yep.
and they wanted to get in touch with them, right?
Absolutely. You see Ouija's popularity during times of war,
Yeah.
where people do want to speak to deceased loved ones. So World War II is going on here.
In this display case, we have two that I would like to talk about. One is, it seems to be specifically a Ouija board for girls. It's pink. It seems to be marketed specifically for younger women. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a Toys R Us exclusive. And it comes with these great suggestion cards of who will take them to prom, or will they marry an actor, things like that. The suggestion cards make it.
The other one that I wanted to point out is the psychic sex board, which is a neat twist.
Great. Yeah.
How did that one come to be, and how does it work?
That one's pretty fantastic. So it's made in Massachusetts, in Watertown, in the 70s. And I love that it has, not tonight, lights on, lights off, what position, perfect for the 70s key party.
And up here on the top, you have, it looks like a planchette collection here. Is that what they're called?
Exactly, planchettes.
Does that word planchette, is that used in any other context except for Ouija boards?
So I believe planchette, spelled slightly different, is also like a blank coin.
Okay.
As well.
All right.
Back here is more pop culture, music influenced, Ouija influencing music.
There's the poster for a witch board starring Toddy Catane.
Absolutely. Fantastic. That movie is responsible for getting a lot of my friends into collecting and wanting to learn more about Ouija boards. So thank you, Tawny.
Yep.
Stranger Things board.
This is probably the most recent acquisition, I'm guessing.
One of the most recent, and why I like to keep it in here, is actually everything in this museum is mine except for 3 boards.
Okay.
This is one that's not mine.
Really? Okay.
This board was donated to the Talking Board Historical Society, and the previous owner donated it to the TBHS. They didn't put a return address on the package, only a note inside, and the note's next to the board. Basically says, if you find this board, please forward it to the TBHS, because trust me, you don't want it. And so I love that. Obviously, they must have had a bad experience, so much so that they didn't want it coming back to them. But the fact that I don't know the full story makes me like it that much more.
Well, Kelly, what an interesting evening this has been
What an incredible experience this was.
down at the Witch Board Museum here in Salem. I hope we've whetted your appetite for the experience. So, John, tell us, how exactly do we get here? When can we get here? How do we get here? Let us know, because we all want to come
Yeah,
visit.
well, I hope you come visit. I'm in Salem on 127 Essex Street, right across from the Hawthorne Hotel. We're open year-round, 7 days a week. Most days 11 to 6, 11 to 8 on the weekends. And you have to go into the store, Remember Salem, which is also known as the Harry Potter store. Go into that store, and then the Witchboard Museum is in the very back of that store.
Is there some sort of like secret password or anything that people
There's
need?
there's signage, so you shouldn't.
Oh,
You just have to
okay.
look for it. That's all.
All right.
Come on down to Salem Spookeasy.
Oh,
Good one.
Good
Good
one.
one, Kelly. Excellent work. All right. There you go, everybody. Come to the Witch Board Museum. It'll change your life. Thanks.